Okay, we are live now. We can start the show.
Thanks a lot. Good evening, my dear viewers, those who are very much hooked on to our very unique and spectacular bandwagon of Education Pe Charcha. I welcome all my viewers from across India and those who are part and parcel of our bandwagon from across the globe. I welcome all of you to a very unique and spectacular show that is Education Pe Charcha. My dear viewers, I do offer my profuse apology, on account of our, means our discontinuation of our two consecutive programs because of some sort of my traveling outside Ranchi, and consequently two consecutive programs could not be held, for which I express my profuse apology. My dear viewers, this is Vivekananda, as you know, an author, academician, and a public intellectual, the convener of Education Pe Charcha. My dear viewers, it is 45th program or session on Education Pe Charcha, which is very much held in collaboration with, the professor, Dr. Shri Surendra Pathak ji, an adjunct professor of means Mahatma Gandhi University in Gandhinagar, and the technical assistance rendered to us by Sabda Pathak ji, and of course poster being made by Sri Chandan Odom. My dear viewers, I welcome all of you today on a unique and spectacular discussion, which will very much revolve around a very unique product called Makhana. And of course, the specialist who is today's very august and esteemed guest of ours is Professor Shri Vidyanath Jha, who, apart from being one of the very esteemed and a coveted educationist, having a very impeccable sort of reputation, he also happens to be an authority on Makhana. Professor Dr. Shri Vidyanath Jha, of course, has been a very well-known face to me for over a decade, because when he was presiding over the destiny of one of the important colleges in Darbhanga, I have had an opportunity of, just presiding over a very important motivation and leadership session, in his college, of course, with his blessings. And so therefore, I have seen very closely how, his immaculate conduct as a principal of two of the important colleges in Darbhanga, if in fact, witnessed a very substantial improvement, not only in terms of academics, but in terms of overall grooming of the students. That has been a unique contribution of Professor Vidyanath Jha, who happens to be gracing and blessing today's Education Pe Charcha. My dear viewers, this apart, Professor Vidyanath Jha has been some sort of authority on researching on a very important product called Makhana, which very recently has got the tag of being a Mithila Makhana, a sort of patented product by its name, Mithila Makhana. So, of course, Makhana today is known across the world, and most importantly, after the Prime Ministerial announce, means declaration, or you can say prime ministerial pronouncement on the overall importance of that of Makhana, even the areas which were not conducive to producing Makhana, they too have jumped in, with a very pioneering sort of initiative to produce Makhana, because it is a very popular product having a tremendous amount of export demand. So that is what today we are going to have a unique discussion on, or rather a comprehensive discussion on the product called Makhana, apart from of the educational, you can say, the educational environment, the pedagogical aspects and dimensions, and of course the overall performance of the faculty, across, means in Darbhanga and across Bihar. So it is going to be a very comprehensive as well as a holistic discussion on so many issues and dimensions concerning education as well as Makhana. I welcome Professor Dr. Shri Vidyanath Jha, who indeed has been, I have seen very closely, been a very upright professor, an educationist, and a thorough researcher on the product Makhana. And of course, before we kickstart this particular very important and educative session, I would just like to, of course, Professor Vidyanath Jha has been absolutely fluent in English, Hindi, and so many multiple languages. But nevertheless, I would like to make it a point, just even at the very only of the session that whichever language you would prefer to communicate. Of course, English also is very fluent, so it is up to his discretion as to which language he would select for an interaction in today's very spectacular session. Professor Dr. Shri Vidyanath Ji, sir, I very much welcome you for today's spectacular session. And of course, it is indeed, it's going to be a very educative session on so many important aspects and dimensions, as I just mentioned a moment back. Now, this very first question goes to you, sir. And the walking down the memory lane, could you let our viewers know about your sophomoric days, that is the days of your student days, and your village till you're obtaining doctorate degree in botany? My dear viewers, this is also a very special session on Education Pe Charcha, wherein we have invited a botanist, because Professor Dr. Shri Vidyanath Jha Ji happens to be a botanist. So this is the first time we are having the bestowal of divine privilege, in as much as we are hosting a botanist for our today's show. So, sir, please, your take on this very important question. Just walking down the memory lane, please share with our viewers about your sophomoric days, culminating in your obtaining a doctorate in botany. Please, sir, your take on this.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I was born at a village in Darbhanga district, and in 1956, my primary education was there at the village primary school. But my father was a teacher, of course, vice principal of a Sarvodaya Vidyalaya, offering education till 12th class at that time. So after primary education, myself and my two cousins, all three of us, we went to the school at Saharsa district. Now it is in Madhepura district, adjoining Purnia district. So my 6th, 7th class and upwards till 11th class. At that time it was 11 plus 2 plus 2, as against 10 plus 2 plus 3 today. So I did my matriculation from Government Sarvodaya Multi-Purpose School, Amari, near Murliganj. At that time it was Saharsa district. And from there, for intermediate science, I came to CM Science College. It was CM College at that time. And while I was a student, that college, science faculty was bifurcated from the original CM College, a very reputed college of this area. And after ISC, I did BSc with botany honors from the same college, CM Science College. And at that time, Mithila University also came into existence. Earlier, it was affiliated, but rather a constituent college of Bihar University, the then Bihar University. And I did my BSc honors with the first class from CM Science College, Mithila University, and then again got enrolled for this MSc from the same university, Mithila University. Thereafter, I did my MPhil from Meerut University. Only a few days back, one of my friends, who is a senior officer with the National Highway Authority of India, 42 years back we were together, and he happened to be on an onward march for this moina of this plantation and other things at the National Highway. He came to meet me after 42 years. So it was a pleasure for me. Perhaps he is attached with this program also. Dr. Ashok Kumar Jain. He was an Indian Forest Service officer of 1983 batch. So just by chance, I encountered this situation and I am narrating it here. And after I did my MPhil from there, I applied for CSIR fellowship. I got it at Ranchi University, and my research guide was Dr. Upendra Narayan Jha, who happened to be a student of the father of Indian ecology, Professor Ramdev Mishra, of his name fame. He was a name in himself. So he did his PhD under Professor Ramdev Mishra of Banaras University. So he asked me, when I got the fellowship, he asked me. In the meantime, I tried for getting my fellowship transferred to Delhi University, BHU, but that was not destined to be. I had to continue for a short time. For 3 months, I became a teacher at the Patoli Central School, Kendriya Vidyalaya, and I had to leave it to join my MPhil program at Meerut University, and then I did my PhD from the Ranchi University. The PhD was awarded in 1988, but by the meantime, in the meantime, I got appointed as lecturer in botany under Mithila University, and got posted again at my own college, at my from where I am an alumnus, CM Science College, and there I remained as a teacher, a lecturer, reader, and professor under merit promotion scheme. Continued till 2009, and then I became principal. Became principal of 2 colleges in the Darbhanga district.
Professor Saab, and my dear viewers, this was how the Professor Vidyanath Jha, in fact, whom very affectionately, not only I, but all his acquaintances so affectionately, just call him as Vidya Babu, because he has earned that sort of impeccable reputation. Now, my dear viewers, Vidya Babu has already given a very comprehensive account, right, since his sophomore days, culminating in that of his obtaining a doctorate in botany. Now, as he has disclosed in course of, just jotting out the details pertaining to right from his sophomore days, till his obtaining doctorate, he had just mentioned a very important point, that how he came in, how there was a renewal between him as well as one of his very, very close friends after 42 years. A sort of recollection came to my mind very instantly, that how I too met all my school students after 3 decades. That was a sort of a review which was worth remembering. So as soon as Vidya was trying to tell us about that sort of a very, very important reunion between him as well as his friend after 42 years, this particular fact, which was very much in some sort of backyard of my memory, came tumbling out, because of course there is a symmetry between Vidya Babu's meeting with one of his friends after 42 years, whereas me too meeting all my boyhood friends, school friends after more than 3 decades. Thank you, Professor Saab, Professor Vidya Babu. Now I'm coming to a very, very important point, because I just had to cut you short, sir. Just condole me but more kindly remember that I have 10 questions to ask. And so you have to be very, very, means to the point response is what exactly we are looking forward to from your answer. Now we are coming to a very, very important question. You went on to become the distinguished principal of 2 colleges in Darbhanga, MRM Girls College as well as MLSM College. You were reported to have made some valuable contribution in the academic improvements in both colleges. Could you kindly share some of your important exploits as the principal of both the colleges? Please, sir, your take on this.
Yes. I was placed first at MRM College, and I stayed there for about quarter to half 2 years, and then again I was shifted to MLSM College, again shifted back to MRM College, where I completed 5 years of my tenure, and then again to MLSM College. I remained here, and I think it would not be exaggerative if I say that my university allowed me to remain at Darbhanga. Although the university had its jurisdiction over four districts, starting from the Nepal border up to the river Ganges, from Madhubani to Begusara. But I can't say my university allowed me to remain at Darbhanga. Such was the situation, and I tried my best to improve the situation in both the colleges. MRM College is a girls' college, and I was its male principal. There were certain occasions when I had to feel some sort of embarrassment also. But then again, so far as the improvement in the girls' education is concerned, I tried my best to bring it at the level and that it was to have under my stewardship. So result also improved, and the condition of hostel improved, and RUSA and other agencies, they provided grants to the college. University also had its good eyes over it, and the students also they felt that someone is there at the helm of affairs of the college, and they didn't ever hesitate to come to me, even for the problems of the hostel, the teachers, the employees. So university started fixing my college at the centers of different examinations. That practice was not there earlier. We developed a very good garden, and a number of series of persons, distinguished personality. Rajendra Singh visited it. Then the Padma Shri singer of Chhattisgarh, Tijan Bai, she also visited it. A number of distinguished academicians, they visited my college. So as to bring it at par with distinguished colleges in Bihar as well as over the country. Results saw an improvement. Examinations were held. So university, just while I was there, thought of engaging the college in all sorts of affairs, curricular as well as extracurricular. All these were there. So I think I should not claim the improvement myself. I should not claim it. It is for the society to judge. An academician does it to his best, what he can do, and it is at large for the society to judge how much I succeeded, how much I did not. At MLSM college also, I had occasions to bring, invite late Manas Vihari Verma, the academician, the scientist, Tejas scientist, engineer. He was there as a member of the IQAC of the college. And I had occasions to invite Dr. Jogendra Thakur Biyogi, Jogendra Pathak Biyogi, the scientist of Gurdam experiment level. He also had occasions to come to my college and deliver lectures. And I had also an occasion to organize the convocation of the college. That was the first and perhaps the last occasion a college was allowed to hold its convocation. And both Professor Ratneshwar Mishra, the famous historian, and engineer Manas Vihari Verma, Padma Shri, they were guests and they delivered convocation addresses at our college. I organized programs every year in the name of on the birth anniversary of Lakshmishwar Singh, after whom this college was founded, Maharaj Lakshmishwar Singh Memorial College. And all the lectures, they have been brought out in the form of a book. And I think that is worth seeing, worth reading for any college. A number of publications were there, regular newsletters were brought out, highlighting the achievements of the college. So in a nutshell,
Vidyababu, so my dear viewers, what Vidyababu was exactly trying to emphasize upon, I am there to corroborate, because I also had the opportunity of just, conducting a seminar at his college when he was the principal of MLSM college, so far as my memory goes. So of course he was trying, because I tell you, my dear viewers, despite being the author of Yes, I Am Bihari, which is a world popular book, which, where I try to showcase the glory of Bihar at the global forum, I know that Bihar absolutely is an ungovernable state. There is a gross indiscipline among all sort of among the academia, and of course among the different stakeholders. To govern such an ungovernable state or any institution itself is a daunting challenge. And Professor Vidyababu undoubtedly and unequivocally stood up to that particular daunting challenge and tried to improve the situation to the best of his capacity. And that is what I am corroborating as a very, very special witness to that particular situation. Now, as Professor Vidyababu had mentioned the name, the illustrious name of great immortal Dr. Manas Vihari Verma, of course, he was the architect of Tejas, the name which was given to the particular light combat aircraft by the then Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So, of course, Dr. Manas Vihari Verma was the architect of Tejas. And most importantly, my dear viewers, being an author of the pioneer book in the world, The Living Legends of Mithila, I had the occasion and the privilege to portray Dr. Manas Vihari Verma as one of the important living legends of Mithila then. Unfortunately, Manas Babu is no more with us. Thank you, Professor Sahab. Vidya Babu, of course, you try to explicate on this issue so very comprehensively. Now I am coming to a very, very important question. My dear viewers, before I ask this question to our very, very esteemed guest, it becomes absolutely incumbent on my part to tell you some sort of background about the man about whom I'm just going to ask this question. This man was a luminary of Mithila and the country, Dr. Lakshman Jha, one of the greatest scholars of all times. And most importantly, he was a Samaritan, a man, he a thinker par excellence, and he was all the time thinking about the good of Mithila. Somebody told me decades back about a particular story, how Mithila was deprived of some specific allocation of funds, which was which was given to the government of India by Her Majesty government then, and how mischievously and notoriously that particular fund, which was exactly earmarked for the development of Mithila, because my dear viewers, all of you must be knowing, or as well as you would appreciate, that Mithila is that unfortunate part of the nation which used to remain and still continues to remain submerged under the waters from different rivers like Kosi, Kamla, and all these turbulent rivers. So therefore, the people of this place were absolutely an impoverished lot, and they had to migrate to metropolises and cities for eking out their living. So definitely, for such a unfortunate class of people, British some sort of fund, special fund was allocated for the development and improvement of the particular area, which somebody told me was very close to Dr. Lakshman Jha decades back, was actually diverted towards Punjab for Satluj River and all that. Here is a man, after decades of my quest for unraveling the truth, I came across Professor Vidya Babu, who had a very close proximity with that of the scholar of scholars, Dr. Lakshman Jha. And he is the person who corroborated the particular that particular story, which was narrated to me by one of the close disciples of Dr. Lakshman Jha decades ago. So here now the question comes about Dr. Lakshman Jha, with whom Professor Vidya Babu traces his very close association with him for decades together. So Vidya Babu, this is the question. It goes in this way. You were also closely associated with the famous scholar of Mithila, Dr. Lakshman Jha. Could you kindly share the nature of your association with the scholar of scholars? Your take on this, please.
Yes, I consider myself very fortunate that as a student, when I was a student at CM Science College and later also, I was in his association. We used to go to his place very frequently, very frequently. I think after a gap of one day or so, we four friends, one of whom is Dr. Professor Nandakishore Shah, who happened to be the Vice Chancellor of the University Ara and had occasion to do advanced research on cancer at America, and Dr. Bhavanath Jha, Professor Bhavanath Jha, who also happens to be an FNA, and Dr. Balaram Singh, who was at BN Mandal University. So we were close friends, and we used to visit his place at a very, very regular intervals. And at least 2 times he allowed us to accompany him in the journey to his village, the CRD, and just walk on the Kosi Band embankment from his village up to Kusheshwar Sthan. So I had an opportunity to be a close student of him, and he became Vice Chancellor also of Mithila University. It was at that time it was not LN Mithila University, it was Mithila University. And Lalit Babu was just in politics. They were together, and Dr. Lakshman Jha was a great freedom fighter, and we saw him wherever he used to go. People flocked around him. So I just thought it, how could it be that wherever he goes, people are there, people surround him. So it was a sense of sacrifice for the country. He was a very distinguished freedom fighter, and we have seen how that Piri is not there, Piri that is not there, and there has been a gap in the society so far as the morale of the society is concerned. So whenever there was a problem with the university, the vice chancellor and other persons, distinguished persons, politicians, I have seen the district judge and the district magistrate of Darbhanga at that time. They used to frequently visit his place. We have seen it. And it was a team from BBC that came to him to just make a film on him. Otherwise, generally, he didn't allow these things to be photographed, to be filmed. So these things he didn't never allow. But at that time, when it was a matter of BBC, he allowed it. And he allowed it that it would be there for the posterity, and so he thought about it, gave it thought about it, and allowed himself to be filmed. That film must be with the BBC right now. So we were fortunate that he allowed us to have his company, and it was during independence, as I have heard from him, that a major chunk of the sterling balance that was there and that was earmarked for raising the multi-purpose dam in Barah Kshetra at the top of the Kosi River. So, but just after independence, as Punjab was then at the near the seat of the power, so they prevailed upon the government, the then central government, and this Bahudeshya Pariyojana, Bada Kshetra Bahudeshya Pariyojana, was shifted to Satluj, that is Bhakra Nangal project. So, as I have heard, this was originally slated for our region, Bihar region. It was Dr. Rajendra Prasad and whole lot of politicians, Congress politicians of that time, engineers of that time. But it was a sad affair that that multi-purpose dam was not built. It has not been built. Whether it would be built or not, now the situation has changed, and now everywhere in the world, people are of the opinion that big dams should not be made, should not be constructed. And I had occasion to be in the programs of Sundarlal Bahuguna at Delhi at that time. Sundarlal Bahuguna was against Tehri Dam at that time. That literature also came. I brought that literature. I showed it to Dr. Lakshman Jha. When he went through all the literature, he changed his opinion, and thereafter he didn't talk about raising big dams. Thereafter, Vidyanath Jha, who is also known for his efforts for all-round development of Mithila, and more particularly of raising the Bahudeshya Dam over Kosi at Bada Kshetra, I think for his entire life, he raised this matter, but it didn't come out, the dam didn't come out, and we do not know whether it would ever come or not. Now the situation has changed. Everywhere people are now against big dams. I think this is the case with Kosi also.
Thanks a lot, Vidya Babu. My dear viewers, what Vidya Babu was trying to explicate. Obviously, I too am collaborative because I know one of my very, very close associate who is the greatest expert of river today in India, Dr. Shri Dinesh Misraji, an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur. He's being one of the topmost engineers, and he had been a researcher in the field of rivers. He is the person who keeps on giving his guidance, opinion to the Honorable Prime Minister, to Chief Minister of Bihar, especially concerning all the rivers. He is of the opinion that dams is, of course, it should never be built because it restricts the natural flow of water, which proves to be a greater catastrophe than what ordinarily it is expected to be. So consequently, the building of dams and larger dams, especially the larger dams, that should be jettisoned. That should be absolutely avoided because it is not at all conducive, to taming the rivers. It was an earlier instrument to control or contain the overflow of waters. But with the passage of time, as Vidya Babu was trying to say, the sort of opinion which has come into existence, the expert opinion, I would say, that is the dams, building of dams should be avoided. And wherever dams are being built, it is all because of the collusion among all stakeholders like politicians, engineers, and all contractors, because they make a lot of money on account of building of all these dams. But this is not at all conducive, or conducive for the people, or it is not at all good, or you can say in the interest of general public. So building of dams should be given a decent burial once and for all. That is what Vidya Babu is trying to say. And I too am corroborating based on the expert opinion of Dr. Shri Dinesh Misra ji, a stalwart of river in the country today, whom I also already had an opportunity as well as a privilege to host him on Education Pe Charcha in the past. Thank you, Vidya Babu, for all your erudite opinion, because you have been a learned person. I have been knowing you for decades, and you have been a researcher par excellence on all these areas. Now,
I would like to make a comment here.
Please.
Yes, you have told about Dr. Dinesh Kumar Misra. I also had occasions to come across him. Dr. Dinesh Kumar Misra is not only against dams, but he is also against embankments of all the rivers that have been raised in post-independence dispensation. Perhaps he is of the opinion that except the embankment on River Kosi, all other embankments should be jettisoned. He is of that opinion, except Kosi. That is the case because after the raising of embankments, the area under waterlogging, area under inundation in the state of Bihar, it has increased at least 2.5 times. The area that was there under waterlogging before the raising of embankments, that has been the situation. But again, then another problem is there that today rivers, almost all rivers in this region, they do not have water all through the year. This is another problem that we are confronting today. That's the case.
Of course, Vidya Babu, you have made a very, very pertinent point, my dear viewers. This is indeed a matter of a grave anxiety and a matter of stupendous concern, because Mithila, which is, as you know, even my viewers, you know, those who have been listening to our ongoing interaction must have formed their opinion by now that Mithila is almost, you know, you can say a submerged area, even if not for throughout the year, but of course, for the substantial part of the year. But even in Mithila, the grave crisis which has been confronting the inhabitants of the place is that of, because a shortage of water, drinking water. And it has been really an amazing experience for me to come across the scenario in my village where the people are purchasing water like what we are doing in cities. You know, they are purchasing water because tube wells and all that, they say as per their version, though the tube well waters contain the greater proportion of iron, which is of course detrimental to the health. And that is why they keep on purchasing even water, you know, water, drinking water. It is a matter of a humongous concern for the planners, and of course for the bureaucrats to take cognizance of this very, very growing menace. If this menace is not being contained forthwith, it will evolve into a catastrophe. So if we want to avoid that sort of apocalypse, what exactly is desirable is to contain, you know, this particular situation from spiraling out of control. Thank you, Vidya Babu, for your very, you know, enlightenment on the state of situation that you're experiencing today across Mithila. Now I'm coming to the very, very important question, my dear viewers. Now we are coming to a very, very important question, because Vidya Babu is well-known person, a pioneer researcher in the field of Makhana, which has been recently patented as Mithila Makhana. So Vidya Babu is a known figure, a researcher in the field of Makhana. That is, he's, you know, of course, he's an educationist, undoubtedly, but being a researcher on Makhana has given a gravity to his overall persona. I'm coming to this very important question, Vidya Babu, because you have been a pioneer researcher in the field of Makhana, a product which stands patented today as Mithila Makhana. You only informed me, my dear viewers, I have had a very important interaction with Vidya Babu very recently at his residence, wherein he had posted me with the oceanic information pertaining to Makhana. And this is the information, piece of information furnished to me by our esteemed guest, Vidya Babu, that what, you know, in Mithila Makhana. Could you kindly let us know about this product and its worth in today's exporting arena? Your take on this, Vidya Babu.
Yes. Our area, that is Mithila, is known, rather it is synonymous with Machli, Mach and Makhan. Pag Pag Pokhari, Mach, Makhan. This is the introduction. All these are synonymous. Ponds, and then Makhana, then Machli. March. All these are synonymous. And I think we must remember the great king, this Shiv Singh. There is a saying that Pokhar Rajokhar or Sab Pokhara, Raja Shiv Singh or Sab Chokra. A great poet Vidyapati was his friend, philosopher and guide, and the great king Shiv Singh was after the digging of ponds and tanks at his time. And I think big tanks called Rajokhar, almost all of them, their Makhana is grown today. Makhana, I think it is Makhan, that is a grain used in yagyas. And after too much of effort, I was able to find out its indigenous name, that is under the name of Bherund. I think Makhana is a later name, and Shraddha Chintamani of second Bachaspati second, and there is a mention of its indigenous name, Bherund. And Makhana is an identification. It is identified with Mithila, and recently GI tagging, geographical indicator tagging, that is likely to be granted under the name of this Mithila Makhana. Bihar Agriculture University, Sabor, just initiated the process. Earlier it was the name was to be Bihar Makhana, but the people in this area, they resented it, that GI tagging is all not awarded, allocated in the name of a state, rather in the name of an area where it grows. So that was the ground on which, after too much of resentment shown by the people here, so it is likely to be there in the name of Mithila Makhana. Now this Makhana has got very good quality of starch. Carbohydrate is there in the range of 76%, then about 10 to 12% protein is there, and it is almost fatless. It is almost fatless. So it is in high demand during these days, and the demand is very high from the affluent countries where people suffer from obesity. So that way, too much of demand is there. And during Corona period, none other than Prime Minister Modi, as you have already mentioned, he referred to the booster capacity of Makhana. It raises our immunization capacity. So during COVID time, such food products are in high demand. That way, Makhana also is in high demand, and being fatless, this is a point which facilitates to be in high demand in other countries. So this is one case. Its protein is of very high quality. The essential amino acid index, that is in the range of fish, the content of essential amino acid index that is there in the fish and mutton, that is there in the case of Makhana. Its chemical score is high. Its biological value, that is the amount of nitrogen, that is amount of protein that is retained in the body, is about 55. So it can be a supplementary food. And recently a compound HbAc, hydroxybutylenic acid beta caprylate, is an anti-diabetic compound that has been reported from Makhana. In heart disease, also it is effective. And then drug, it can be used for making the drug effective at a certain place. So Makhana can be consumed along with other drugs, and it allows it to reach the place where it is required. So these are the things, day in and day out, a number of papers are coming on it. Recently, there is a report that in China, a spineless variety of Makhana has been developed. And if it happens so, because there was this was a case with Singara also, chestnut also. There it was 4 horned, it became then 2 horned and 2 spined, and now that spine is not there in the case of chestnut. Now it is just a spineless chestnut. Similarly, in the case of Makhana also, researches are being made to make a spineless variety of this Makhana. So if it happens, and if it really happens, and it is likely to be in the coming decades, I think it would be so, then we have a proverb, Makhana ke patte se muh poch ke aiye. मखाना के पात से मुंह पोंछ कर आओ। इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि कोई यदि अपने आप को बहुत तेज समझता है, चालाक समझता है, यदि वो है नहीं ऐसा और बहुत डींग हाँकता है, तो उसको कहा जाता है कि मखाने के पत्ते से मुंह पोंछ करके आइए। तब ये जो कहावत है, क्योंकि मखाने का जो नाम है, बोटेनिकल नाम है, दैट इज यूरेले फेरॉक्स। ये ग्रीक ये माइथोलॉजी की देवी है यूरेल नाम की। उसका चेहरा बहुत भयावना होता है और मखाने का भी जो ये जो प्लांट है वो स्पाइनी, डायरली स्पाइनी, वन कैन नॉट डेयर एंटर इनटू द पॉन्ड अनहार्म्ड. So such is the case with Makhana plants. Those who have not seen Makhana plants with their own eyes, they just mistake it as a product of this lotus. They belong to the same family. Lotus in Nelumbo, it also belongs to the same Nymphaceae family. So if you go to Delhi, in the markets of Delhi, and you ask for Makhana, they will tell that it is a product of lotus. So that is a misnomer. And recently, one journalist, lady journalist from Chennai, I asked her, please mention it for God's sake, that whatever Makhana is, it is not a product of lotus. So they are highlighting it on internet also, Google also. You will just find this type of information. Even in papers, and such type of mistakes are there. So I want to just remove this type of galatfahmi that Makhana is a product of this lotus. But of course, a number of medicinal property in both of them, as told under the Ayurvedic context, they are similar. So they are similar property. But then, even then, these are two distinguished plants under the same family. So
thanks a lot for enlightened us, enlighten our viewers on so many multi dimensions, of the very, very important product called Makhana. And my dear viewers, as you heard our very distinguished guest today making a very, very invaluable announcement, or rather revelation, that how Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji had given so much emphasis on this particular product called Makhana, and he dubbed it as an immunity booster product. And the moment, and as Vidyababu would testify to it, because he was the one who posted me with this very, very vital piece of information, that once Prime Minister had given a lot of emphasis on this very, very important Mithila product called Makhana, even the areas which did not produce Makhana, they seriously took up cultivating Makhana in the areas or in the terrain which were not conducive or productive for for producing Makhana. Because as Vidyababu will just tell us a while later, that how Makhana requires a very special type of field or cultivable field. It requires very special type of fertilizers, or you can say unique manures for its own cultivation. So it's not areas which do not have all these sort of combination of these inputs are not fit for producing Makhana. But despite being this particular fact, after Prime Minister came out with a very important declaration, even the areas which were not originally fit for producing Makhana, they increasingly took to producing Makhana because of its overall export value. Vidyababu, just without taking much of time, could you please tell us that how, what is the overall prospect or potential for, of Makhana for generating revenue, or from the revenue generation perspective? Your take on this, please.
Yes. Just see, as the case is, as of today, Makhana is cultivated in North Bihar, Mithila area, in 8 to 10 districts, starting from Madhubani up to Kishanganj. Madhubani and Darbhanga, under Darbhanga division, then Saharsa, Supol, Adhepura in Kosi division, and then Katihar, Araria, Purnia, and Kishanganj in this Purnia division. So all these 8 to 10 districts, Makhana is a normal place for its cultivation. But see, in Purnia area, that is Kosi belt, they are taking out water. Water level is very high, and just by applying mass boring system, they are taking out water, and Makhana is grown there under khet that is filled. Just that Makhana does not require too much of water. Knee-deep water is sufficient for it. And today there is time that both productivity and overall production as well as productivity of the crop is enhanced, and all efforts are being made in this direction. Two important centers have emerged for research on Makhana cultivation. One is under ICAR dispensation at Darbhanga Research Center for Makhana. Earlier it was national. We are again trying for restoring its national status. And the other center is Bhola Paswan Shastri Agriculture College, Purnia. And the principal is there, Dr. Anil Kumar is there, other scientists are there. They are doing very good job in improving. They have brought out a variety also. Here at Darbhanga, RCM Makhana, RCM, a variety has been brought out from here also, and they are doing good job at both the places. New varieties are coming up, and they have also developed an integrated method of cultivation with other crops as well as with that of fish, a number of fishes. Earlier, the sea in Makhana system, under the indigenous system. Earlier, I would like to make it just rather in some elaborate detail that our Makhana system is very fit for the growth of captured fishing, that is singhi, mangur, kabai, gaichi, etc., etc. These are air-breathing fishes. They come over the air, water surface in Gulf air and they go down again. And the detritus that is very rich, the muck that is very rich in organic matter, because nothing except seed is taken out of the system. Everything remains there. Only seed is taken out through the arduous process of virtually sweeping the floor. So the demand of the time is that both production as well as productivity of the crop is enhanced. And under integrated aquaculture system, now I think since a decade or so, even more than a decade, now the farmers as well as scientists, they have devised a method to raise the productivity of fishes also in this system, under this integrated system. And they are leaving open space either in the middle or at the side to allow these carp fishes also to thrive and survive and raise their productivity in this system also. So, and this system is succeeding. And I think Blue Revolution is there under the agenda of both Bihar government and the central government. And I think the state of Bihar is likely to shed its dependence on the Andhra fishery. And all efforts are being made. And we think and we are seeing that Bihar would become self-sufficient in the production of fish also. Another source of protein. Makhana also is a source of good protein, and the fish also is a source of good protein. So that way, and the problem of malnutrition with the gentry, that problem is also likely to be solved in the years to come, in the year when we are seeing it. And the big question is that how to raise the production of Makhana. Even in the, I think, nearby Muzaffarpur, Begusarai, Siwan, Gopalganj, a large number of inundated areas are there where water logging remains all through the year. Even outside Bihar, I think seeds have been procured from Research Center of Makhana. Dr. Shekhar Singh is the head there. He had sent seeds to Dhamtari in Chhattisgarh and KVK there. And successful production has been there, not only in Chhattisgarh, several other areas, several other states. I think they have asked for seeds from this center, from Darbhanga as well as Purnia. And I think this year we are hoping a bumper crop of Makhana, and that also in the field condition, because here there is dearth of water. There is dearth of water. 2019, worst situation that was faced in the case of availability of water. But then Bihar government is also there. All efforts are being made to make water available to the irrigation available to all the fields, all the plots. And government is working hard under this dispensation and with this interest. And I think the situation will improve. Makhana production as well as productivity, both are most likely to improve. And I think the airport has been there. It is operating from Darbhanga also, and the cargo facility is likely to be made available. And one thing is that Makhana freight is charged as per the volume it occupies. And one gunny bag that contains 100 kg of other grains stores only 10 kg of this Makhana pops. So that's the case. So these days, all efforts are being made to supply Makhana in the form of powder rather than in the form of pop. A number of entrepreneurs, Anish Anandji, then Shravan Rai-ji, a number of others, they have come out. Chaudhary ji from Makhanpur, then Singh from Patna, all of them, a number of entrepreneurs, they have come into this business, both in the case of cultivation as well as in the form of processing. So I think it is likely to be a global crop, and this age of this globalization, nothing which has got even a little iota of merit in it can remain hidden for a longer period. So that the days of Makhana have come, and I think this year rains have also been there frequently. There have been frequent rains at short intervals. So this year we expect a bumper crop of Makhana.
Viewers, our esteemed guest, Dr. Vidyanath Jha, has furnished a lot of details pertaining to all those very very intensive details which could only have been furnished by an expert who has already been into researching its various aspects and dimensions for decades together. So I'm sure the sort of the plethora of information which he has just furnished definitely is going to enlighten us on the way, on the overall utility, overall cultivation and its overall export value. So in fact, it has been a holistic piece of information which has been furnished to us by our esteemed guest, and I'm sure it will help the students community who are in the process of preparing for competitive examinations, and even for all categories of students to be enlightened of the various aspects and dimensions of Makhana. Thank you, Vidya. Now I'm coming to a very important question, because you would appreciate we have a limited time. We do love to be with you on such a delicate and vital issue such as Makhana, about which we are discussing, but of course time is a constraining factor. But nevertheless, the sort of information that you are providing to our viewers are really of huge importance and significance. Now I'm coming to your very next question, Vidya. Your visit to Manipur, because if you can recall, in course of our last interaction at your residence, you very candidly informed me about your undertaking visits to so many places. So one of such places was Manipur, where you gave an impression of, where you got the impression of the product of Makhana being used in different ways for making recipes there, which were in absolute contrast with that of recipes being prepared in Mithila and some other places within Bihar or even outside Bihar. So could you please tell us about these different recipes which you found in Manipur, were in absolute contrast with the sort of recipes being prepared out of Makhana in Mithila? Please, your take on this.
Yes. As I would like to tell here that Makhana cultivation is localized in Mithila area, but its wild populations are available from the northwestern lakes to Manipur lakes in the east. So such a wide distribution of its wild population is there. Now, I had an occasion to visit Manipur and visit the lake, Loktak lake there. In Manipur, it is called as Makhana, is called as Thangjing, but it is not, the cultivation is not there. Its parts, the various parts, including fruits, they are collected by the people who are moving on boats, and they are simply taking the fruits out. And those fruits are sold in the Imam market there, run by women in Manipur, Imphal city. So they are preparing a number of dishes. They are number from it, and chutney, then some sort of achar. So these things, vegetative parts, then eril, then it's placenta, then it's young leaves, I think immature seeds. All these are used for making very good dishes. And under the name of Thangjing, you can just find it out on the internet. So a number of Christians, they are there, they are using it as salad. So that is there. And Professor Asha Gupta, who are retired there from Manipur University, Life Sciences Department, I asked her, I had an occasion to go there in a conference organized by her, and she told me, please arrange the harvest of, as it is done at your place, harvest from the pond bottom, because that is not done from the pond bottom, just fruits are taken out. And it is from the fruits that they derive all the food products, all the dishes there. So there is a need that the pattern of preparation of subsidiary food that is there in Manipur should be introduced in our area, because in our area also just the plantlets, they are simply thrown out because they require large space. One plant, if allowed to grow to its full, it develops 10 to 12 10 to 12 leaves, some decaying leaves, some maturing leaves, some mature leaves. That is the case there. As such, a number of plantlets have to be simply thrown out. And I am just striving upon the point that there is a need to bring out dishes, prepared dishes from the young plantlets in our area, and also follow the pattern of using the non-pop parts also. In Bihar, in our Mithila area, we are only using the pops, nothing else. There is a need to use other parts also in the form of other dishes. So that is the need there. And also to make the farmers there know the process, intricate skill of harvesting it from the pond bottom, and then further processing also, process of pop formation also. These things are to be learned. These processes, these skills are to be learned. Because even today, I am just stressing upon the point that even in Purnia Katihar area, it is the fishing community from Darbhanga and Madhubani that migrates and remains there in that area for about 6 months. Entire family, children, women there, they stay there. So that's the case. Earlier, it was only the men who migrated for this harvest and processing process. But that is not the case now. So there is a need to formulate a policy for such migrants to other areas of Mithila and to areas outside the state, because they are facing a number of problems. And recently, MP Gopal Thakur was there at Makhana Research Center, and a Makhana farmer raised this point that please look into this aspect also, migration of poor fishing community, poor fishermen, women, and they have to face a very, very, very pitiable plight there. So that has to be looked into. That also, that aspect also.
Thanks a lot, Vidyababu, for discussing in details about the nitty-gritty, nitty-gritty of different recipes in different places. Thanks a lot. Since our time is running out, I'm straightway coming to the very next question, very, very important. You also got your papers published on Makhana in different journals across the world. Could you share your experience pertaining to the publication of your articles on Makhana in various journals across the world and the sort of response that those articles evoked in the wake of their publication? Your take on this, please.
Yes, good question. But before that, I would like to just point out that as a researcher on Makhana, I had an occasion, a chance to come across a professor of Hebrew University of Israel, Madam Nama Goren Inbar. She came all the way from Israel just to find out how people here, they use Makhana, they cultivate Makhana, they use it because from an archaeological site of Israel, a number of nuts, including that of Gorgon nut, that is the name of Makhana, that was found out. And she was very curious to know how the prehistoric people, they might have used it, hammer, anvil, etc., etc., all these were discovered. So this was a good day so far as my research, as a researcher on Makhana. I found out, welcomed her at Darbhanga. I showed her a number of slides. She got satisfied and returned back. She just published her paper in the reputed journal Science. And so far as my publications are concerned, my first publication was made in the Aquatic Botany, famous journal on aquatic plants from Netherlands. And I think it was a review cum research paper. Editor was not in favor of publishing that paper at that time, but both the researchers, they were unanimous on this point that it should be published, and it was published. And with publication of this article, I think my work on Makhana was recognized way back in 90, and from then onwards, I have been doing it. Even today, I am not in a laboratory now, but so far as field studies are concerned, I am doing it on Makhana and a number of other plants. I would make the details in on some other occasion, but Makhana is my first love, and I am still continuing to do it in collaboration with scientists at Makhana Research Center, then also at Purnia, and also at scientists at other parts of the country. That I am continuing.
Thanks a lot, Vidya Babu. In fact, we are coming to the end of the show. My dear viewers, you have seen the sort of enlightenment of our esteemed guest today. And it is, as he said, the Makhana is his first love. And it is only on account of his extensive research on Makhana. As I already introduced him before, I just welcomed him on dais or on podium, that he is a pioneer researcher on Makhana. And that is the region, I must tell you, that is a pivotal region. Of course, he is an educationist par excellence, no denying the fact, but it is on account of his wholesome interest in researching on Makhana, being a pioneer researcher, that I have, we all are so very glad to include him, and to have begun my earnest journey, embarked upon my historic journey yet again to write the Living Legends of Mithila Part 2, where under we have had the privilege of portraying Dr. Vidyanath Jha as one of the living legends in Part 2, the Living Legends of Mithila, because of his overwhelming interest in Makhana, as well as his being a pioneer researcher in the field of Mithila Makhana, because as Mithila painting happens to be a core identity of Mithila, likewise because of such perseverance, persistent perseverance, and a crusade on the part of such crusaders like that of our esteemed guest today, Professor Vidya Babu, Makhana has come to reassert the identity of Mithila as much as Mithila painting does it. And that is why he has earned his coveted place as a living legend of Mithila. And therefore, we are so glad to portray him as the living legend in the Part 2 of Living Legends of Mithila. Vidya, we are just coming to the end of the program, and it will be a very, very interesting question, because not only you have been a pioneer researcher in the field of Makhana, but you have been an educationist par excellence. So I know we would like you to deliver your message from this very, very august platform to students community as well as those who are interested in the field of Makhana. My question goes in this way. You have worked extensively on researching for Makhana for decades. Based on your research and various studies, what is, no, sorry, I beg your pardon, this is not the question. Sir, what would be your message to the students community in Mithila who have a strong desire or intention to study, yet are hobbled by the absence of appropriate environment, especially infrastructure, and lack of competent faculty? Because, my dear viewers, I have no qualms in publicly communicating this particular fact, that in Mithila, across Mithila and even across India, but mostly in Mithila, I have seen the professor community, or rather the professors are very, very reluctant to take classes. I have seen the esteemed guest today, Vidya Babu, has tried to enforce discipline. But again, if every individual is not interested to teach or to perform their duty, even a principal fails or falters, but he has seriously tried to do it. So in Mithila, I have seen the students are really hobbled by the critical absence of both infrastructure as well as the competent faculty. So therefore, I asked this question to our educationist par excellence, who had worked for decades in improving the educational environment, and by introducing series of reforms to improve the overall educational environment. So what would be your message to the student community, number one? And second question, so your second answer I would like to elicit from you, that what steps would you suggest for improving the production of Makhana in Mithila to boost its overall revenue generation? Please, sir, your take on these two different aspects of the question.
First question. See, the situation has changed. In our time, even if we opted for one event in our life, and after much pursuance, we used to achieve it. But we cannot say that it would be true for this generation also. Too much of competition has been there. So the situation has become rather more complex. But even then, opportunities are there. Even sitting at Darbhanga, we can scan all the research that has been done on Makhana in all over the world. So that is there. That advantage is there. So, and actually, I am doing that only. And the message from my side for our students would be that this our Mithila area, our Bihar, has got a very big opportunity for just scanning the biodiversity that is there in different fields of plants and animals. Rather little explored, underexplored. This area is underexplored, and you will believe me that I am just writing a paper on just this cluster plantation of the trees which is there in our area. 2 trees, just like Bargad and people. Why only these 2 trees are selected for plantation for conservation of the biodiversity? Similarly, just this esquinomine, that is gorilla, was used, and it is still being used during the repair of just a watch. Then even today, our ornaments, they are cleared. They are just the dirt is removed by the use of this Rita. Even today, after removal of so many of chemicals, even today in the formation of gur, that Evel moscus plant, a close relative of this Ramjomni, Evel moscus, that is still used for making production of gur, that is jaggery, even after using so many chemicals there. So these type of situations are there. It is for us with our keen eyes, keen mind, that we should look into the benefits, the wealth that is there around us, and that does not need big laboratories. If we have big laboratory, we are able to go to the big laboratory, okay. But if we do not have that opportunity, it is ample of opportunities are there for us in our adjacent environs, and we can do that. The need is that we have a keen sense of just looking into the issues, looking into the wealth, looking into the biodiversity that we have, that is being used and has future potentials for use. I would cite you an example. You were there in Kolkata. Your schooling and college that has been there in Kolkata. There they are selling this kulekhada, that is kulekhada under handfuls. मुठिया में लेकर के कुलेखड़ा का पौधा वहाँ पानी वाला जो साग बेचते हैं, और आप किसी कलकत्ता वाले से पूछिए तो बोलेंगे खून बढ़ाने के लिए हम करते हैं. Nobody takes notice of that plant that abundantly grows in our area. And in Ayurveda, in modern science, medicine science also, that is amply used. So a number of opportunities, a number of items are existing around us that we should look into with a keen mind, with an investigative mind, and we will find a number of aspects, number of opportunities, number of fields to investigate. So that message is there, that don't be desperate. If you are not getting right now the opportunities to work in big laboratories at big places, whatever you have around you at the small place that you are residing, you have ample opportunity there itself. Please have an open mind, please have a keen mind, please have your open eyes, and then go ahead into the journey of life.
Thanks a lot. Our very, very esteemed guest, I would like to thank him from the core of my heart, because, my dear viewers,
one thing I forgot. And just one thing I forgot about the Makhana book that we published in 2003 from ICAR. That is the first book on Makhana that was under joint editorship of Professor R.K. Misra, who did extensive work on the Makhana insects and pests. And then Dr. P. Vidyanath, who was DDG of ICAR at that time, and who extended his help in publication of that book. And that book has been instrumental in setting up the RC Research Center of Makhana here also.
Please show that book with the.
That, you have that is not with me.
So, my viewers, you have heard today's esteemed guest, a venerable professor, indeed a great researcher, a pioneer researcher. And of course, it has been a very, very enlightening session, because I have been knowing Vidya Babu for so many years together, and my discerning pair of eyes could make out his overall brilliance that is so, means his personality so ostensibly exhibits. And that is why I was glad to have extended my invitation to honorable guest of ours to grace and bless Education Pe Charcha. My dear viewers, next Saturday again, we have another very, very venerable guest, a great professor of physics, who know under whose stewardship and guidance thousands of IITians, IIT means students cracked IIT examination. That is Professor Brajmohan Misraji, who was the director of WIT and one of the topmost professor of physics in Bihar, under whose guidance and supervision thousands of students cracked IIT examination. He is going to be the distinguished guest to grace and bless our next Education Pe Charcha. Today, my dear viewers, we have had a wonderful session because first time a botanist, we invited and he tried to illuminate all of us with a variety of information about which I tell you frankly, I was absolutely oblivious about. And so if I could be enlightened on so many multiple aspects and dimensions, I'm sure my dear viewers who have been so devoutly being attached to this particular bandwagon of Education Pe Charcha, which is equivalent to educating the nation, definitely must have benefited, must have benefited extensively, or rather, it, in so much abundance, they would have been benefited out of today's very, very invaluable interaction with our distinguished guest, Professor Shri, Professor Dr. Vidyanath Jha. Today, my dear viewers, I'm not very sure because our very, very, esteemed Professor Dr. Shri Surendra Pathak has been traveling in train. Whether he'll be able to, translate our today's conversation into Hindi or not, I'll just have to check with him. Professor Surendra Pathak, sir, are you there? Dr. Surendra Pathak, are you there? So, my dear viewers, actually, since he has been traveling, I'm very sure that possibly he might not be able to contact, make contact with all of us today. So today is such a brilliant, such an engrossing and very productive and efficacious transcript of conversation could not be translated into Hindi. So, or I don't know, Sabyaji, will you translate today's version? Sabyaji? Sabyaji? Hello, Sabyaji. So hello. Is my voice audible? Is my voice audible? I don't know, maybe because of some technical problem, I don't know. So it's well and good, actually, maybe because of some technical deficiency, my voice is not being heard by the concerned people. So I beg your pardon. I do bring this today's very, very productive interaction onto a very positive conclusion with a sort of announcement, rather reiteration of announcement yet again, that next Saturday we are going to have another distinguished guest, Professor Dr. Brajmohan Misraji, one of the topmost professor of physics in Bihar, under whose supervision and guidance thousands of students cracked IIT. So with this information, I once again thank my today's very, very esteemed Professor Dr. Vidyanath Jha for gracing and blessing Education Pe Charcha. I thank all my viewers. This is Vivekananda Jha, author, academician, and public intellectual, returning you back to studio with a commitment to be back again on Saturday at the same time at 7 for a live session on Education Pe Charcha. Goodbye to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks.